Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing Who Was Better. The topic for this Who Was Better? Two former rivals, two bitter rivals, Homicide and Steve Corino. Two wrestlers that if you were an indie wrestling fan in the early 2000s, or a TNA fan or an ECW fan, you know. Two wrestlers that pretty much kept the indie scene thriving in those years. Homicide helped build the X Division in LAX and TNA. Corino, former ECW champion, helped solidify and make companies like Ring of Honor more of a serious company just with his presence. With that being said, they had a hellacious feud against each other. I do believe that there is real animosity between the two. So let's face them off here to see who was better. Now, if you haven't seen these videos before, I rate everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. We have 8 categories. There is a chance for bonus points at the end. We'll talk about that when we get there. First category, technical wrestling. For Homicide, I'm giving Homicide a 3. And I may even be underrating him here. And I think he is underrated by most people in this category. I think a lot of people think of Homicide and just think of a brawler, think of someone that just goes there and punches and kicks. I think that is his strong point, but I don't think he's necessarily weak at being a technical wrestler. I think he does have the skill. It's just that he works best with his character, and his character works best as basically what it seems to be, a street gang member. So for this, he gets a 3. Now for Corino, I'm giving Corino a 4. Corino to me is a harkening back to a Tully Blanchard style of wrestling, a very methodical, a very heel-based way to wrestle, and doing all the shortcuts. Even when he's a face, he does all the shortcuts. I really enjoy the way he worked. He is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Homicide too, I like Homicide a lot. But for Corino, he gets a 4. Now for striking, I'm giving both these men a 5. You just heard what I said about Homicide. He is known for his brawling. He is known for his wild antics. So with that, he gets a 5. Corino also gets a 5. He's been known to be a brawler, especially after his matches with Dusty Rhodes, where he was pulled more out of that King of Old School vibe that he had, which was an amazing character, don't get me wrong. But I feel like he learned so much from Dusty Rhodes and implemented that Dusty Rhodes / Terry Funk style of just wild brawls into his wrestling. That's why he gets a 5 as well. Next up, how they perform as a heel. For Homicide, Homicide is getting a 4. The only thing that stops Homicide, in my opinion, from getting a 5 is, as a heel, I don't think he was ever a top-tier heel anywhere. And that's not a knock on him. He was a very great character and he had some very memorable storylines. But it always felt like he was just in that upper mid-card. Don't get me wrong, we'll talk about his face part in a moment here. But for that, I can't give him more than a 4. Now for Corino as a heel, whether it be the anti-hardcore stuff, King of Old School style, the evil stuff in Ring of Honor, all of his heel iterations, he was top-notch in my opinion. He knew how to get the crowd against him, and he wasn't afraid to be booed and be genuinely booed, not booed just because it's part of the show. Like I said a minute ago, he did work a very old school Tully Blanchard heel, which is one of the classic heels of the 80s. That's why I think Corino is a top tier heel in my opinion. Now next up, how they perform as a babyface. For Homicide, I'm going to give him a 4 again. His most prominent babyface run is probably his run as Ring of Honor World Champion, and I thought it was really good. The thing, again, that kind of knocks him down a bit, when you think of the annals of Ring of Honor, you think of those early years, you think of Danielson, you think of Punk, Loki even, who at times was in stables with Homicide, Christopher Daniels, and Homicide kind of gets lost in that mix. And that's not to say he wasn't fantastic, he just didn't quite get to the top. You could be a Scottie Pippen and be one of the greats of all time and still not get to the level of a Michael Jordan because there's Michael Jordans that exist. Like I said, I think he was a 4 as a babyface. Now for Corino, I'm giving him a 3. While I do think by the end of his career, he was a default babyface because he was just beloved, I think that Corino is the kind of guy, kind of like Miz, and I know a lot of people are going to hate me for comparing Corino to Miz, but Corino just has that punchable face. He has that natural heat that you get just by looking at him. You can look at a picture of Steve Corino and want to smack him in the face, let alone his promos. So unfortunately, and towards the end of his career, it did transfer over to where he was beloved, but I don't think he worked as well as a babyface as he did as a heel. Promos. For Homicide, I'm giving Homicide a 4. And the thing of it is, a lot of people may not think of Homicide as a great promo guy or someone that has memorable promos. To me, Homicide always spoke from the heart, and he always felt real. He had that effect like an Eddie Kingston would have, where you believe everything that comes out of his mouth, and you believe what he's saying, and you believe he lived the life that he's talking about. I think he was a really good promo, not quite on the top tier, but really good. Now for Corino, I'm giving a 5. Corino is the type of wrestler, and I keep comparing him to Tully Blanchard, but throw in other people like Rick Rude, throw in Mr. Perfect, throw in Roddy Piper. He was able to control how the crowd responded to him. Even when they wanted to cheer for him, he would find a way to make them dislike him. For that reason, I think he's just a step above, and I think he is in the elite tier in promos. That's why he gets a 5. Next up, presentation. For Homicide, I'm giving him a 5. The look fits the character, the music fits the character. Everything about him, I think, is absolutely amazing to fit exactly who he is and what he stands for. He looks like a guy that you would see coming from the streets of New York. He's that guy, especially for that time period. So for that, he gets a 5. Now Corino, I'm going to give him a little bit of a step down. He gets a 4 to me. And I've said this on other videos when comparing people's gear and such. For the one thing, he had that god-awful Puff Daddy song, which was a ripoff of Kashmir. I forget what the song's even named. It was off of one of the Godzilla movie soundtracks. But that was his ECW theme, and God, that song was awful. So he gets a knockoff just for that alone. The thing of it is, when you look at Corino, he's kind of a trunks and boots guy, and his boots were inspired by Dusty Rhodes and Barry Windham, and he kind of took a lot of hints from Barry Windham's look. Even when he wore a singlet, he took hints from one of the wrestlers that he has been a fan of, and that's Eric Embry. So for that, I gotta give his presentation a 4. I do think he's memorable, but I gotta knock him off because that Puff Daddy song was terrible. I don't know if it was his idea or Heyman's idea, but that's a really, really bad song. And this has nothing to do with the stuff that Diddy is involved in now. There are some Diddy songs I like there's a song called Victory of Diddy's that I really enjoy, and I still like Mo Money, Mo Problems. But whatever the song name was that rips off Kashmir, and let me know in the comments if you know the name of it, because it's slipping my mind right now. Probably Steve is going to answer this. Steve usually catches my brain slips. But anyway, I digress. That's why he gets a little bit of a letdown, because of that horrible music. Now, last but not least, big game performance. How they perform in the main event matches, the title matches, the headlines of pay-per-views, headlines of big shows. For Homicide is giving a 5. I cannot think of a time where Homicide put in a bad performance in a big name match, whether it be a Ring of Honor title match, an X Division title match, a tag team title match, any kind of match that had big stakes in it. Homicide gave his all. And Homicide always looked great in big time matches. That's why I gotta give him a 5. Now for Corino, I'm gonna give him a little step down. Corino gets a 4. And hear me out, because I absolutely love Steve Corino. These are just unbiased ratings. Corino, in certain times, let's just say a hyped main event didn't live up to the hype, in my opinion. And it's not enough that I would say he's bad or even average. He's above average. It just gives that a little bit of a knockoff. He did have some great main event style matches. His matches with Homicide were great. His feud late in his career with BJ Whitmer had some great main event matches. His matches with both Rhodeses, Cody and Dusty, I think were amazing. But there are a couple in there in that middle area that didn't quite hit for me. Now, totaling up what they have, for Homicide has 35 in total. Steve Corino has 34. But wait, here's where that bonus comes in. Every Wednesday I put on my posts page here on YouTube a poll, and it's a simple question. Who do you think is better? Homicide, Steve Corino, or whoever it may be for that week. Whoever wins that poll gets 5 bonus points. So with that being said, the 5 bonus points go to Homicide. Give him a total of 40 to Steve Corino's 34. Homicide picking up the win here. Well deserved. These guys are amazing. They're 2 great wrestlers. In my opinion, they're 2 of the most underrated wrestlers of the last 20 years. And if you know the names and you're not 100% familiar with them, I would definitely say go on YouTube here and look out some matches. look up some interviews or promos they've done. These guys were just both great. Homicide definitely deserves a congratulations to him. Pay attention on Wednesday, because I will post a new poll for the next week's video. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and you've been watching Who Was Better.